Morning. The South African legislative process is designed for transparency, ensuring every bill passes through these critical stages we see here.
Good evening. Tonight, a look back at the long and winding road that brought us the idea of Parliament, the very foundation of democracy as we know it. Long before the word Parliament ever echoed through London's Westminster halls, people gathered to govern themselves. In ancient Athens, citizens met at the Acropolis to debate and vote. In Africa, village elders and men over 15 assembled in the public square to decide the fate of their communities. These weren't called parliaments, but they were, in spirit, democracy in motion. Let us look at this history.
It is difficult to ascertain when legislatures or what is known as parliament came into being. I suppose that the difficulty lies in defining what is meant by legislature or parliament. In ancient Greece, the people of Athens gathered at the Acropolis, discussed matters affecting Athens and voted on them. Was such behavior parliament? In Africa, the entire male citizens above age 15 gathered at the village square's council and discussed matters affecting the village and voted on what to do. Was such practice separately These were probably legislative behaviors, except that they are not quite what we mean today when we think of formalized legislative apprehension. Let me trace the origin of parliaments, or Congress, or legislation. In 1066 AD, Norman Frenchmen invaded England at the famous Battle of Hastings. The French defeated the English army and subsequently began French rule of England. The French Duke of Normandy, William the Conqueror, became the King of England. He appointed his lieutenants, the dukes, earls, counts, marquis, etc. of England. These folks, the Plantagenet, more or less still constitute the English aristocracy in the present, since the aristocracy in France itself are of German, Franks, and Scandinavian origin. The English aristocracy has Germanic origin. So now you see France, Germany, and England. It is the same thing. And within Germans you can trace the Dutch and so on. The emergent kings of England had a tendency to claim a right to participate in French politics. After all, they came from France. If the monarchy in Paris was vacant, the English king, himself a French man, would vie for it. Failing to get it, he could go to war with his cousins ruling France for the right to rule France. Thus, England and France had numerous wars. The English kings spent the treasury dry fighting wars with France. During one such war, the King of England, John, had less money to prosecute his foreign ambitions and called together his dukes, earls, counts, etc. to a council. His intention was to get them to support the war and puny up with the money to fight it. The lords managed to get the king to sign a contract with them, to henceforth consult them, before he makes decisions involving spending of money. This was the famous Magna Carta of 1215. This date is deemed the origin of the English Parliament. The word parliament is French for council, those making legislative decision in a community. Subsequently, the lords met and advised their king on a sordid array of issues. It came to pass that when the lords met to advise the king, they were said to meet in Parliament. In the English world, which ipso facto, South Africa is a part of, Parliament began in 1215. The king did not have to accept the advice of the lords, but it was a good start to have a belief that the king needed others' input in the making of laws and policies affecting his realm. Subsequent developments in England led to the rise of the House of Commons. We shall not recount English history here, but suffice it to say that the House arose to accommodate non-hereditary aristocrats who were by now becoming important in English economy. Gradually, the House of Commons displaced the House of Lords as the main policy-making body in England. Today, the House of Commons rules England. The House of Lords is essentially ceremonial and has no real power. The House of Commons makes decisions, send them to the House of Lords for input, and may or may not accept the input of the House of Lords, and sends its decisions to the king, who is obligated to sign the decision into a parliamentary act. In effect, the king is as ceremonial and nominal as the House of Lords. England is now ruled by the people. not by the king and his lords. The king and his lords, apparently, are retained for historical purposes and otherwise are irrelevant in contemporary English politics. Indeed, the former British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, has reformed the House of Lords and gotten rid of hereditary peers. Henceforth, only life peers, those the Prime Minister recommended and the Queen honored, can serve in the House of Lords, and do so during their lives, but cannot pass such privileges to their children. Again, the House of Lords can only advise the House of Commons, but are not a co-policy-making body with the House of Commons. Legislation in the House of Commons goes like this. The Prime Minister and his cabinet introduce most of the bills that are discussed and eventually become law, but on paper, all members of Parliament are entitled to introduce their ideas of what policy they want enacted into law. The bill is handed to the Speaker of the House. The Speaker gives it to the civil servant clerk of the House to read. It is then routed to a parliamentary committee where it is studied, debated, and hearings held. Ultimately, amendments are made to the bill. Then the committee votes on it, and if it passes, it is routed to the full House for further debate. If the entire House approves it by a simple majority, it is sent to the House of Lords for further debate and voting. As noted, the opinion of the Lords is not binding. For if the Lords reject the bill, the Prime Minister can still submit it to the King for her signature assent anyway. The King must sign the bill. She has no choice in the matter, for she does not rule England and cannot reject the people's will. When she signs it, it becomes a parliamentary act, part of the statutory law of the land. Unlike the United States that has a written constitution, Britain does not have a written constitution, so her laws are essentially an accumulation of parliamentary acts and the rulings of judges. Britain is a common law country. I should say that, unlike the United States, there is no Supreme Court in Britain. The highest court in the land is the Privy Council, a committee of the House of Lords. This council acts as the final court of appeal in England. The above is a brief summary of how laws are made in Britain. It seems very simple, but the devil lies in the details. For our present purposes, the relevant point is that South Africa inherited the British parliamentary democracy system. I must confess that one of the greatest joys of my life is sitting in the galleries watching British parliamentary debates, particularly watching cabinet ministers and the Prime Minister answer questions. Their mastery of the English language and knowledge of facts and figures on every facet of British life is something that one wished that South African leaders had. Whereas in the British Parliament of the three branches of government, legislative, executive, and judicial are fused and are in Parliament. The American system of government separates the three branches of government. Charles Montesquieu had recommended the separation of powers to avoid tyranny, and the Americans listened to him and structured their government accordingly. Thus, the three branches of governing are separated and are in fact required to compete with each other. They are supposed to be an adversarial relationship. The idea is that their infighting would prevent one person from becoming too powerful, prevent tyranny, and that way protects democracy and liberty. The legislature is supposed to check the president, the legislature, and the judiciary is supposed to make sure that all play by the rules of the game and punish whoever does not do so. John Marshall, the first Chief Justice of America, managed to extend the role of the judiciary by adding judicial review to it, even though the Constitution did not specify that it do so. In America, Congress is Parliament. Congress is composed of two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Members of the lower house representatives serve 2 years. Members of the upper house Senate serve 6 years.